You know it's gonna be like this, huh?
All right. Hello, team. Welcome to our second meeting here. So this is going to be our Foundational Literacy Improvement meeting number 2. So again, first thing we're going to do, acknowledge all of our members here. Thank you, Miss B, for being here. And you are our TSA for kindergarten through 2nd grade. Thank you, Miss V, for being here. Our ENTL, our early newcomer teacher leader. So kind of, again, amazing things that you do. And our leader, Miss M here, Principal M. Thank you so much for being here. It's very powerful that you're here as our school leader. Thank you, thank you. So going into, before we kind of get started, let's go over our agreements and norms as always, and we can kind of just popcorn these around. The first one is being prepped and on time. Thank you everyone for being on time today. Number 2.
Keep kids and their support systems first. Treat them as family.
Maintain equity of voice and the value of every contributor.
Confidentiality. Share the message or lesson, not the details.
Great. And the last one, no mud, no lotus. And I think I'm going to hold that one. Can anyone explain the muddy? I don't say it a lot, but today we're going to get a little muddy. And why is that a good thing? Can someone explain what it means, no mud, no lotus for us?
So without, in like the literal meaning, like if there's no mud, there'd be literally like no flowers. So there has to be some sort of like messiness to get to the beautiful part of our work.
Spectacular. Every time I think of that, I get like inspired. Yeah, so today, we're gonna get in the messiness and see what lotuses we can grow. Spectacular. All right, and then roles today. Who's gonna keep us on time today? Would anybody like to be our timekeeper?
I think I can
Going once, thank you. Ms. M, perfect. And process checker, who's gonna keep us on track today?
I can process check.
Thank you, Ms. B. Perfect. And the note taker today, Ms. V, thank you so much. You can just type right on the document that we're all sharing. And again, so today, our agenda. Today, big things we are doing. So first, we're gonna review our practice of our problem of practice that we came up with last week, looking at our data. Today, we're really gonna be unpacking that. It's a very scholarly sentence, so there's a lot of layers to it, so we really want to kind of look at what that means and looks like. The purpose of our meeting today is to determine an evidence-based strategy to, again, looking at our foundational literacy skills and how we're going to kind of progress monitor that individually in our group here. And at the end, we're going to discuss the data. We have our slides here. Thank you, everybody, for contributing the data. And this is going to kind of lead us into our next steps as we kind of really implement our problem of practice and our evidence-based strategy. Any questions on where we're going today? So it's kind of where we've been, where we're at, and where we're going to be heading to.
Yeah, and I think just kind of like as we're really thinking through our problem of practice, just really kind of making sure it's aligned, to our kind of our North Star, kind of aligned to our vision and mission, and just, we can kind of sometimes tend to be at this macro level, but really making sure, right, that it's narrow and that it's more focused so that, everyone can really, just be able to kind of understand like the expectations of what we select and how we can also take in the feedback of like the instructional leadership team. Like that was really amazing last week. How they, just all of the rich responses that came up. So just making sure we're bringing that into the work.
Absolutely. Thank you for, again, grounding us and showing us where we're going. Yes. So today, just the first part, we are going to review our problem of practice from meeting 1. So again, we're really focused on our K through 2 students and the teaching instruction that they're getting for their foundational literacy. And what are we looking at? Again, our instructional strategy implementation to improve students' foundational reading skills. So this is our SIPs. This is kind of what the data has showed us, and this is where we're looking at. So again, our problem of practice. I'm just going to read the one that we came up with. The problem of practice is to intentionally collect qualitative and quantitative foundational literacy student data while purposely aligning the focus of all student school systems around providing successful SIPS teaching strategies to teachers based on the SIPS overview routine indicators to encourage and scaffold students' thinking during SIPS instruction. That's a lot, right? So the first thing we're going to do is unpack just to kind of better understand that. So let me kind of just turn this off maybe, just off to the side, perfect. And so we're gonna actually unpack our problem of practice because there's so many layers to this. So I kind of wanted to play a little game here called who, what, where, when, and why. So the first thing here is we are thinking about our problem of practice. This is kind of like our why. Why did we choose this problem of practice, right? So next time. Problem of practice, boom. So this is our why, and really the data showed it that we need grade level readers and we want to improve our reading score. So this is our why, right? So now we're gonna kind of look at each piece of this big old problem of practice and look at the first ones. Miss B, would you read our first chunk, our first piece of our problem of practice, please?
Yeah. To intentionally collect qualitative and quantitative foundation literacy student data.
Spectacular. So my question is, what are we collecting? What do we think? So when I hear we are after the foundational literacy data, this is the what we are kind of working towards. And the other part of the sentence is the who. Who is going to be doing the collecting of our quantitative and qualitative data to again get our data here. So the who is all of us. I'm thinking about, so Miss Bradley, if you're thinking about us collecting data around SIPs,
Yes.
what is one way you can collect data? As the TSA, as the K through 2 TSA leader.
I can do observations.
Uh-huh.
I can go around to those classrooms during our SIPS block and collect that data there.
Mm-hmm.
I can also look at our data reports.
Perfect. So I'm hearing quantitative and qualitative. Uh-huh. Perfect. Don't take all the answer. No, that's great. That's great.
Thank you, Ms. Bradley.
Great, yes. And then pass on to Miss M as our principal. What is something, as we're focusing on SIPs, that we could do to collect data?
Yeah, I really appreciate you highlighting the qualitative data collection, because I think a lot of times we talk about quantitative data and we talk about it in terms of collecting our interim or benchmark, assessment data. But I think it's also important for us to triangulate what we're seeing in terms of teacher practice.
Yes.
Right? In addition to sort of student achievement data that we find in not only our benchmark and interim assessment data, but our rich formative assessment data, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how we look at that data, and I think more importantly, how we're using that to drive instruction, how we're using that to progress monitor. So we know that Mason isn't falling through the cracks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or Aaliyah isn't falling through the cracks,
Mm-hmm.
or Natasha is falling through the cracks.
Exactly. Yes. So what I hear is kind of like triangulating data.
Yes.
Almost. It's like looking at observations with the data, and then also like the progress monitoring,
And
the
looking at,
instruction.
and I think using our systems, because it's very important, you put our systems down there. How do we use like our OUSD dashboards,
Mm-hmm.
right, to actually see like who's actually participating, who's taking the test, who's not, right? What's the actual pass rate, right? Are kids actually passing?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. If not, why not? So that we can really engage in setting goals,
Mm-hmm.
planning, teaching, right? Assessing, reflecting, and engaging in corrective action planning.
Absolutely, and all those focus questions are things that, yes, absolutely what this is going to lead us to. Great, so again, we know who is going to be collecting the data, what data we're kind of looking for, and then can, Ms. B, can you read the next chunk of our problem of practice, please?
Yes, so while purposefully aligning the focus of all school systems around providing successful SIPS teaching strategies based on the SIPS overview, routines, indicators.
Spectacular, thank you so much. So this section of our, if we're kind of unchunking this and unpacking this, I see where we are gonna be able to make the difference, right? So the first two wheres that we kind of see is, the first one is purposefully aligning the focus of all school systems around providing successful SIPS teaching strategies. So like Ms. Moore was saying, where we are doing this is we are trying to align our school with instruction focusing on certain things. So we have our coaching aligned with our ILT, looking at the same things as our PDs. And like Ms. Moore was saying, we're looking all towards our North Star around access for our students, access and rigor, right? And what can you add to this, please?
Well, I'm just curious, like, too, how the role of our PLCs, like, how do we, especially our professional learning communities, because there's power in PLCs, and that's where a lot of the work is taking place. And so thinking about, because you had mentioned earlier, and I appreciate you highlighting that in our problem of practice, right? Like the, grade level, like we should be aligning this to grade level standards, right? We have grade level teams that are meeting. So how are they actually looking at data, right? Like regularly, and then being able to conduct like cycles of inquiry. So I'm just looking at the role of the PLCs around this analysis. So I'm wondering
I would see them in between like our ILT and PDs. Like our ILT,
what do you guys
kind of
think?
fun. Yeah, what do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think teachers need that time to really coordinate, and be on the same page, right? We don't want one teacher here, one teacher there,
Right.
and then students confused, or one teacher doing it one way and a teacher doing it a different way. So
Yeah.
Absolutely, and I think with today, when we get to our evidence-based strategy, that's going to be kind of a focus for us, and that's something that we can definitely align there. And yes, the PLC is going to be the powerful place where the teachers are actually going to be the ones to dig in. That's the money part for them. Thank you for bringing that up. And the second piece that we're kind of looking at, the second, where can we make this change, is we're looking at, again, teaching strategies, again, are coming up based on the SIP's overview routine indicators. So again, going through our actual curriculum and what works here, this is gonna be what we are gonna be looking at, right? So now, yeah, sure, please.
Yeah, it's interesting, just listening to the teachers last week, like, we actually, Ms. Bradley and I were walking in the hallway, and we had a teacher come up to us and tell us that she was implementing SIPs, like the lessons, like instead of, like, I think this is a key piece, the routines, the indicators, whether you're implementing like beginning or extension, and I think she's doing extension, and she wasn't really going through the instructional routines. She was taking like half of them and doing 1 week or half the other. Like she wasn't going through the entire routines in a full day, which leads back to what you were saying around the coaching piece, right? Like that tweak. So I think, right, like, is that sort of like a needs assessment? Like where are our teachers?
Yeah.
Like, are they actually understanding the routines? So this makes me think about, like, what about the role of the learning walks? Right, within this, because that then leads to the coaching, and that's the qualitative piece, right? Like what we're getting from that qualitative piece of the learning walk or the walkthrough, that then will inform.
Absolutely, yes, and thinking if we all do, yes, and then just thinking about how if we all kind of collect our data and all under one like indicator, and how we can kind of calibrate and things. Yes, I would love to get on some learning walks too. Yes. Great, and then if we are unpacking our last piece here, Miss M, Principal M, can you read our last part, please?
Sure, to encourage and scaffold students' thinking during SIP's instruction.
Spectacular. So for me, when what we talked about is scaffolding students' thinking, this is gonna be our how. How are we gonna get the students and the teachers to be able to perform like we want them to, right? So today we're looking at our evidence-based strategy, and that's what we are gonna dive into.